Oh, I didn't realize it was going live. It's live. I
Was
hit the
it
button.
live?
Shoot. Oh, your screen messed up. People are going to know you have a green screen.
No.
Should I do the intro? Should I do the intro?
Yeah,
Welcome
go
back
for
to
it.
Everything EOS, the longest running EOS podcast. We are here in social quarantine with Yves La Rose from #2 BP on EOS Nation. But to be honest, we got so much news to go through.
It's insane today how much good news we have, Zach.
I do got to show for the likes, the comments, the subscribes. Everyone watching's already subscribed, I assume, but you got to smash those likes. Traffic's been down. The market capitulated, liquidated right after our last episode. The market dumped really hard, and we
it was pretty bad, Zach. I think it was what you said. I think you scared away some people there. So let's tone it down a little bit, but let's smash the likes.
Yeah, we got to help with the whole YouTube algo, man. The more you like it, the more you comment, the more people are going to see it in the suggestions whenever they're watching other videos. Hopefully they'll get into an EOS wormhole and get suggested this video here. But we got a lot of stuff to talk about. So
we do.
Since it's our show, we're going to talk about our stuff first.
Our stuff first. I like that.
Let's go with the xNation. xNation EOS liquidity pool. I'll get it up on the screen. You explain it.
Awesome. So xNation is a partnership between Bancor and EOS Nation. We won a Bancor grant several months ago to basically help them expand the Bancor smart contracts. So the idea of liquidity pools with Bancor, if you're not familiar with that, it actually is the engine that's running the RAM market on EOS as well. But essentially, it's kind of like a peg. Think about it like a relay. And what it does is that you're able to put two assets, one on each side. One is the BNT token, Bancor's token, and the other one is whatever project. In this case, oftentimes it's the project operators themselves. So the developers themselves, they'll go and put their project. What that does is it gives access to liquidity for that particular project. Think about it like your own mini self-exchange in a way. You're just adding an extra place where people can go buy and sell your token. And the more liquidity you have, then the better it is, because then you reduce slippage. And what that means for people who aren't really familiar, think about when you want to go buy a token, or you want to go, you like a token because it's got utility, you want to use it, and you're like, hey, I want to buy $100 worth of this token. And you go somewhere and there's not enough liquidity. And so that $100 actually costs you $150 or whatever, because there's so much slippage. Or let's say the token is trading at $1. Well, by the time you actually put in your $100, the last token that you bought, you paid $1.50 for it or whatever. So with these Bancor liquidity pools, you're just adding more liquidity into the ecosystem. And what's really interesting about the way that we're doing it, and basically how we were, the partnership that we formed, is that it gives the possibility for projects to create their own pairing, but then to anybody else to then go and add. So for example, Zach, if you like a particular project and you want to add liquidity to it, you can. And then that reduces the slippage for that particular project. If you're bullish on that project or you like that project, and then you're able to then get a portion of the fees based on how much liquidity you own in that pool. So if you own 50% of the liquidity in that pool, then you're going to get 50% of the fees accumulated by that pool. Now, why it's even more interesting and why this is so important is it's DeFi. It just adds more DeFi onto EOS. The more DeFi we have, decentralized finance, the more arbitrage opportunities we have. The more arbitrage opportunities we have, the more bots we have making these trades between different platforms, collecting those micro gains here and there, giving fees into the platforms, but then raising the whole liquidity pool for those projects. More liquidity pools, that means that you as a user, if you want to go buy or sell a particular token, then you get less slippage. And so it really completes that circle. It really adds to that back and forth that exists. And it's super good.
You're going to lose some people. Some people think exchanges are evil, but liquidity is king. Everything has to do with liquidity.
Of course. Without liquidity, you can't do anything. So if I've got a project, and let's say I'm really bullish on a particular project and I want to go buy some tokens, if there's no liquidity, I'm going to be paying out of the wazoo for whatever it is. So even if the token has a particular worth, if there's no liquidity, it doesn't matter. One of the reasons why EOS is so strong is because we have so much liquidity. So when we look at EOS, and I don't know what the position is, but let's say 7th or 8th position, even during this downturn, we're at least $1 billion worth of market cap. What that does is if you want to buy, $5 worth of EOS, you're not denting the system at all. So $5 of EOS, you'll get pretty much bang on, no slippage, what $5 will give you. But then the more liquidity if you want to buy $50,000 worth of EOS, you're still good. If you want to buy $100,000 worth of EOS, you're still good. When a project doesn't have liquidity, you don't have the capacity to be able to do that. So even if you do have investors that want to come in and want to purchase the tokens or applications that need the tokens, they can't if there's not enough liquidity. And so liquidity is incredibly important. That's a function that the exchanges provide, as well as large investors, as large as market makers, etc.
So I'll just pull up real quick before we hop off. And
now with xNation, you're also, as an individual, able to provide liquidity into a particular pair.
So these are what's on the screen here is the EOS projects that basically created the liquidity pools.
Yeah, so you've got, like, let's say Boyd. Boyd is a great example. Boyd adds liquidity to their, so right now the ratio is at 50-50. The way that the Bancor contract works is that it's a peg of, let's say, 50-50. So it's a 1-for-1 in a way. And then as liquidity gets removed out of one of the two relays, so if let's say BNT token goes down because a lot of people want to buy or want to get the BNT token because they want to sell the Boyd token, then that peg starts moving in one direction. And then it always wants to rebalance. And so the cost of the Boyd token will then go up until somebody says, whoa, there's an opportunity there for me to go get the Boyd tokens at a cheaper price. So then you're going to buy Boyd tokens that you're going to give BNT, and that's going to refill the relay there. And so that balance is basically what a Bancor relay is.
All right. So I think a lot of people know what Bancor is, but there's no question that they know what this next exchange is. I said we're going to talk about our own stuff, but we're going to skip a few topics and we'll get back to it. And I'm talking about, we had a big voter shakeup today, a major voter shakeup on EOS. So
yeah, so go down, Zach, and then we're going to go through a couple of these because I just remember that Blocks shows you the last 24 hours, right? And so some of these started happening more than 24 hours ago. So if we just look at the first page, EOS Sphere plus 20 million token, plus 20 million votes, Node 1 plus 30 million, HK EOS actually got a full 40 million. DAC 40 million, Crypto Lines 30 million, Brazil 30 million, 42 30 million, Titan 30 million, Sweden 40 million, Cafe 40 million. So
let's get into,
these are all where are these votes that you guys recognize, right?
Where are these votes? Where'd the votes come from, Yves? Where'd they come from?
They come from Binance. They come from Binance. They come from an exchange. And they come again. We talked about, I think it was on the last show, Zach, where we talked about the exchanges have the opportunity, right? The more large players we have in the ecosystem, the more they can provide balance to one another. And they all have different ways of wanting to do things. And Binance has chosen this particular way of voting for these types of block producers, which typically are the ones in the West that we recognize the most because they're what we call Western block producers.
So as you see on your screen, I just clicked EOS DAC. EOS DAC is one of the block producers that have been here since the start. One of the Genesis BPs. Everyone knows Michael Yates and Luke and everyone there, but they're falling out of paid positions. And we're going to get into the WPS.
They were out of paid position.
And with the new WPS, which we'll talk about in a second, everyone that is in a paid position gets a seat at the table. So we have all of these new Western BPs getting seats at the table for the WPS, which is removing even more potential risk for English speaking people. And you look at who's voting, who are these new votes on the EOS DAC? I'm on the EOS Authority site right here. Binance Prox 1, Binance Prox 2, Binance Prox 3, 4, all these different accounts adding millions.
40 million votes, 40 million votes. So not only does it add obviously to the pay position of the block producers, it also pushes them well away from that pay threshold position, right? So somebody like DAC, who was out of paid position just 24 hours ago, is now well above the paid threshold. They're good.
They don't have to sweat every day because whenever you're a tweener, like I don't check blocks every day. I'm sure the block producers do, but I would always see like teams, like great teams like EOS Sphere, HK EOS was pretty far down, I think recently. And now these producers that whenever I ran a proxy, like these are the people I would vote for. They're the people that the nation proxy votes for. And so that's basically who I'm voting for anyway. But now they all have seats at the table for the WPS, which is our next topic, because there's been some updates to it since the last time we talked.
Yeah, there's been some updates. And just going back as well to Binance, Binance has actually been vocal about the WPS. They've been in the channels. They've been talking back and forth. I think let me just plug it in there. Or Zach, do you know by any chance what the link is? It's
To what?
T.me. So there's a Telegram channel, T.me to access a Telegram channel, and it's EOS WPS. So it's the official WPS channel, the WPS General Discussion channel. And Binance has been active in there here and there, talking about what they think they would be able to do with the WPS and how they'd be able to participate. And essentially, with the voting shift that we've seen, they've now helped some teams, or like I don't know how many that is, 12 or 13 teams or so, secure positions so that they can remain in rankings to be able to participate in this WPS. And these are teams that typically the Westerners associate with, they know of, they can communicate with. They're using Telegram, they speak the same language, similar culture. So it's very, very bullish for them. So WPS. First update. Time
out. We had so this is a non-sponsored podcast. Nobody's paying us to do this. We're just doing it because we love EOS. But Cam Moshi in the live chat just paid $5, so I will call out his paid message here. Thank you, Cam. He said update elliptic curve cryptography implementation for POS and EOS V2 implementation progress. I'll even pop that up on the screen for him.
Do you know what he's asking?
No, actually.
I do know what he's asking. And so there was POS is trying to get a particular code base implemented into EOS. Now, for those who want the actual more technical description,
we got a lot to go through, Yves.
Maybe Cam, you can post that. But you gave $5. Come on, Zach.
I know. All right.
But you probably want to go in the EOSIO developer channel, and there's some representatives from Block.one that actually answered and gave more information on that, because it's not as simple as simply merging a PR, and there are more implications as well as to doing so. So the idea behind POS is that you'd be able to hide your keys so that nobody knows who made the transactions. There are regulatory implications for that. It's not necessarily something that we want to do. And it also has hard fork implementations for EOS itself. But please go check the EOSIO developer channel. And big shout out to Cam, obviously, for sending you $5.
Yeah, man, I'm rich, man. I haven't gotten a sponsored live chat in a long time. Thanks, man.
I think I've ever seen those on this show.
We'll have to shill for them more often. All right, let's get
I don't get anything. Everything would go to Zach. So if you want to send some funds, send some to Zach.
I actually got I gotta actually set it up so I could even receive that. That's another issue with Google and me, and a PIN number of some sort. But real quick, before we get into the WPS, you just want to give a very TLDR on like a couple of the core aspects of it, because we had someone in here that said main issue is EOS has people are saying EOS is dead. You're dead wrong. Never mind. I thought I was going to read something. Let's just get back on track.
All right. Let's get back on track.
WPS.
So WPS. Yes, you were talking about. So the first MSIG of 4 was executed the other day. The first MSIG was the creation of the EOSIO.WPS account. And it passed with an overwhelming support, 34 approvals, 19 out of the top 21 block producers approved. And I can tell you that it was actually one of the people out of the 2 that didn't approve is because they were in transit. They're actually traveling back to China from the US, and so they weren't able to do so. We tried to wait for them as long as possible, but after we got 34 approvals, including, I think it was 15 standby block producers, we executed the MSIG. And so that first step passed. We broke down the implementation of the WPS into multiple steps to really give time to be able to debate. And we saw that, for example, Brendan and I had a good chat the other day publicly on Twitter. I don't know if you want to pull that up. And I really like that, because I agree with Brendan. There are some risks inherent to any change that we make on mainnet, regardless of WPS. But there are a lot of risks to the WPS. And what Brendan is essentially doing right now is giving us the opportunity to go one by one and address those risks and how we've designed a system in order to be able to mitigate those risks. So either mitigate them completely, because there are certain things that have been mitigated compared to, let's say, previous WPS designs, especially because everything is on chain. So that was a core key component of the design. But other things, it's lessen the risk and lessen the likelihood. So when you do a risk matrix, you've got your how how often could that happen? You know, what is the likelihood, or what are the chances that that's going to happen? And then if it were to happen, what is the risk? So, you know, low, medium, high type of thing. So what he's giving us is the opportunity to showcase how how we've thought about this, how we've designed this, and what we've done in order to be able to mitigate those risks. Not only the likelihood, but the impact as well.
We got JL in the live chat, or Steve Smith in the live chat, saying, explain some of Brendan's concerns if possible. I think the easiest one to explain that I understood immediately whenever you pointed out was why you chose to do block producer making these decisions instead of token holders. And I think the argument to that is on point.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of reasons, but I think the one that we highlighted that is the strongest, and really this goes back on experience of what we've done on other chains and designing other WPS systems. But the main one is, if you're a proposer, so you've got an idea, you submit your idea, Zach, and you say, I want to do X. How do you go to reach out to that whale that's anonymous? You have no idea who that whale is. And we've encountered these problems, but you do know who your BP is, or you do know who the BPs are, because they have to be public. And those BPs are accountable to the token holders. And
didn't a bunch of BPs that speak English and were Genesis BPs and generally well-liked people, available, easy to reach, a bunch of them just got put into...
get boosted up in ranking? Yeah. So
interesting.
Who would you go reach out to? You know how to reach out to the BPs. And these token holders that has large amounts. So we did try this. We did try a system where token holders who have large amounts of tokens participate in the system. If you don't include large, let's say you don't do a high threshold and your threshold is really low, well, then it becomes very easy to be gamed. Or if the threshold is too low, then even just one exchange or one large token holder could essentially veto, either approve anything or disapprove anything, right? So the system as it's designed right now is what we came up with. That is the most, I guess, how can I say what would be the word? The most fail-proof in terms of how it aligns the incentives between all parties involved, so that you can reach out to your BPs. Your BPs are accountable to the token holders anyways. And at the same time as well, there's attention that is required in voting to WPS. So I spend 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year in EOS, but you might not. And so for me, I'm paid in order to be, as a block producer, our operations, we do get rewarded in order to do this job. So we are incentivized to be able to do this. And if we don't do this job, you can easily remove your votes.
I'm incentivized.
So the incentive structure is really what's at the base of this. And we're leveraging what's already on chain. So everything remains on chain.
I don't know if I consider this $5 I made today being paid by EOS or paid by what's his name again? Hold on. Cam. I just want to bring up another thing. So even though this isn't inflationary, we could have that conversation another day. Saeed Jaffrey posted something that it essentially raises inflation by 0.03%. And that's only what would you say was because it's adding 50,000 to circulation? Or?
Yeah. So actually, let's back it up a little bit. The funds do not come from inflation. So it's very different. They do not stem from inflation, but they are inflationary. Two different things. And the reason why they're inflationary is that they're taking tokens that are currently out of circulation, the name fees to start with, and they're bringing them into circulation. So they are inflationary. They are adding inflation to the ecosystem. The way that it's designed is that there's 25,000 EOS made available monthly for this WPS. The likelihood is that not all of the 25,000 is going to be used. Actually, that's very unlikely, because the parameters that are set are extremely aggressive, extremely conservative. So it's going to be very difficult to get ideas passed. But let's say that it were to actually unlock 25,000 every month. Every single month, 25,000 gets maxed out and it gets released into the wild. It's 0.03% inflation added on top of what already exists. But that's
how many tokens did we just burn? And how much inflation did that?
34 million tokens.
And that removed a lot of inflation.
Yeah, it's a joke. So it's important to know that the BPs, when they burn the tokens, they actually reduce their pay, because the amount of pay that you get is based on how many tokens are in the system in total. That's a percentage, right? So the less tokens there are in total, that percentage is now worth less quantitatively. So this is not an inflation problem at all. And these tokens, if they're released in the wild, they add less than what BP in the top 21 makes per month. it's roughly the same as 1 BP makes per day, give or take, if the full lot is used.
If people want to learn more about WPS, we did an entire video on it. We addressed like every concern you could possibly have. So just check back on the video from I think 2 weeks ago on the Everything EOS channel, and EOS Nation's YouTube has a great explainer, great landing page for it. But people want to hear about voice. People want to hear about EOS New York. So we gotta continue here. And I saw you muted your thing. I heard that, baby.
I just muted because my babe is not happy right now.
So now it's my turn. We talked about Eve and Binance. Now it's my turn to talk about some LiquidApps real quick. I just wanted to point out, we have a new initiative. So LiquidApps is dog fooding our own tools here. We are in the process of launching an Android app and a desktop application built on top of a liquid chain called Kovacs. Kovacs is basically, if you guys are familiar with folding at home, it's been in the news like crazy. I got this Google News up here. What's the size of computation that they're making? You had to.
Yeah, let me put it, I can't even, yes, I don't even know what that number is. Essentially, it had 18 zeros with a 1 and a 5 in front. It's just an absolutely monster of a number. I believe that they now, and I don't have the exact number, but they're now, if you're familiar with IBM's supercomputer, they're now
like 10
due to
times
COVID-19
more.
right now. Yeah, they're now even processing more than that because people are joining in this initiative. And interesting fact note, folding at home is how I got into blockchain. The first time. So I was folding at home. I was folding proteins years and years and years ago. And when I first heard of Bitcoin, it was because of folding at home. And it was a similar concept where just give your computing power and maybe you're going to make something out of it. Like these magical tokens are going to appear. They weren't even tokens at the time in my vocabulary. But yeah, folding at home. I have to give credit to folding at home for coming into crypto in 2010. Yeah.
So Kovacs is more than just folding at home, but essentially the part of the protein folding is a fork of folding at home. And what it does, it's putting it on this liquid chain. So the entire data set is public and permissionless. So basically, whenever you're completing jobs and doing the work and putting the results on chain, it's on an open permissionless database, essentially, or blockchain. And that's one of the key differences is like if I'm a researcher and I want to use the folding at home data set, I have to ask for permission. They'll probably give it to me. But that's one of the key differences there is it's open, complete data set. You could run AIs on it. There's a lot more to it than meets the eye up front. The other thing is scalability of the network. So this is Greg Bowman. I'm going to pull up a tweet here. Greg Bowman, he's the director of folding at home, which they're basically getting overwhelmed right now. Their servers can't even keep up. So he says here.
So the servers, when you say that, Zach, you mean because they're assigning work, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of the issue. They've got too many people are wanting work.
Yeah. So basically their infrastructure isn't able to scale. Like this is like a crazy time right now where everyone's chipping in and contributing. So folding at home's overwhelmed. So if you want to contribute to this stuff, I know, I'll get into a timeline in a second, but right now, Boyd, I want to call it John from Boyd real quick because Boyd and Talos are already doing something with folding at home.
Big shout out.
They have a team code. So thank you guys for doing that, for holding down the fort while we're getting our stuff together. But there will be an Android app. So basically you'll be able to just run it on your phone. The APK is already ready. I think we're just testing it at this point. But you'll basically be able to just run it on your phone. And that's a little bit different than folding at home because even though we forked it from folding at home, it's been supported. Like you can't go into the Google Play Store and find a folding at home app in there because I think Sony took it over a couple years ago, then they just kind of stopped using it. So that's a key difference is you'll be able to do it on the Android phone and you'll also be able to do it on desktop. And like I said, the big breakthrough here is that it's the very first liquid chain. It's going to be a complete open data set. And with each DSP that's added to the network of block producer / DSP, it actually expands like the throughput of the entire system. So I don't want to say too much, but we are talking to the folding at home team about this stuff. And we are, and it says it in the blog article, so there's no secrets here, but we are talking to individual researchers, research companies to actually use our data set. So when you're doing it with folding at home, researchers are going to use it, but we're going to basically put faces to the researchers for our liquid chain for Kovacs. And I think I'm really excited to see that move forward, but it's just fun dog fooding our own tools, to be honest. I should probably call out all of the DSPs and BPs that are already running Kovacs, because EOS Nation's one of them. We got EOS USA, shout out Michael and Clay from EOS USA, EOS Rio, DAPP Solutions, what's up, Jason? Blockstart, Ramon Binlish, you guys know, Multiblock, also known as Airdrop Stack. All of these teams, if any of them like spun it up today, I might have missed it on my list, but that was who was producing the last I checked. So shout out to all of you guys, and let's move on to the next topic, which happens to be Shinty, but it kind of ties into LiquidApps a little bit also. Yes. I feel like I'm talking too much here, even though it's
man, that's because you're on a roll, man. Ooh. Continue.
Dude, this feels like one of, I told you this whenever we were going over
like one of the old episodes, man.
It's one of the old episodes. It has so much good stuff going on, and I don't want to spend too much time for whatever. So
whatever, man. Keep spending the time.
The DAPP token leasing market is live on the Kylan testnet from Chintai. This basically means that if you want to stake for services on the DAPP network, you no longer will have to buy a bunch of DAPP tokens. So whenever you own a lot of tokens, this is any token. So like Chintai is great for, I think Boyd's on Chintai already.
Yeah, I think that was the first one. Yeah.
Imagine you want to use a service and you need a million tokens to stake to EOS Nation for like VRAM or oracles or liquid accounts. You got to procure those million tokens and then also worry about like the volatility of it. So that's one of the key advantages of a liquid market or a rental marketplace is it allows you to use the services without actually having to own all of the tokens. Then someone who does own the tokens gets to rent or lease them out. The best comparison here is Rex. I think everyone watching this knows what Rex is. It's essentially giving Rex functionality to the DAPP network and the DAPP token. But that's not all.
All automated, all on chain. So it's secure. You never part with your tokens. If you're renting them out, you never part with them. And if you're leasing them, then you actually never really get them. You just get the resources allocated, or you get the functionality of the utility of the token. So it's awesome. Big shout out to Chintai for that.
Before we hop off Chintai, they've been actually doing a ton of great stuff. I don't want to just call out my own stuff. They released the automated resource management called Charm. This basically automates. So if you're anything like me, every month I renew my Rex. Like I buy like 0.1 from the Rex every month. And sometimes like I'll go to do something and I didn't renew it every month. So I got to like deal with the manual like re-upping of resources. And that's like 100 times more complicated whenever you're running a DAPP. So what the automated resource management system is, it completely abstracts having to manage your own resources from a DAPP or from an end user. And it does it all completely on chain for you in an automated way. And then the other cool thing that they're doing is they got this partnership with Cinder Blocks, which is like a real estate company. They're going to white label Chintai to use it for their own tools. Let me see where it says it. I'm not going to read all this. I got it up on the screen. You
go check it out. It's pretty cool. Real estate on the blockchain is just a matter of time till there's more and more of this. For anybody who's ever gone through the real estate process of either purchasing a property or selling a property, and that's at the residential level, if you've ever done it at a commercial level, there are so many players involved, so many different steps involved, so much paperwork, so many administrative fees. Real estate on the blockchain is one of the, in my opinion, one of the biggest use cases that is going to reduce that marginal cost for all the players within the ecosystem. So I'm super bullish on this. This is
100%. Awesome. And I thought I was done with LiquidApps stuff, but I just wanted to point out that we put out a tutorial today. So if you're a DAPP developer, which I hope a lot of you are, we just released a new tutorial on oracles and using them with LiquidX. So you could use it. Basically teaches you how to use LiquidX on Talos or Wax, which we talked about last time we were on here. But it's just another walkthrough tutorial because we've been getting a lot of questions. People want oracles, people want DeFi on Talos and Wax. So we just put that out today. What's the next topic here, Yves?
Next topic. This is a pretty big one.
It's huge.
It's a pretty big one. EOS New York. EOS New York. What happened to EOS New York, Zach?
You gotta. I gotta pull up the shared screen.
You gotta pull it out, man. Pull up the shared screen because this is an official post from Block.one.
Block.one.
That's pretty big. This is pretty big. So you're gonna pull it up.
Boom.
Boom. Block.one. Block.one announces new hires to research and engage with public blockchain networks. High performance blockchain software publisher Block.one today announced the former EOS New York founders Rick and Kevin and their team will be joining Block.one to help the company deepen its engagement with public blockchain communities, promote ideas to foster open, organized, and decentralized public network operation, and represent its interests as token holder of several public digital assets. What do you think that means? That's a mouthful.
It is. It's a mouthful. So I just want to shout out Evan Shepard because I think he might be their team. I'm not sure who they mean by their team, but I see Evan's name's not on there. I don't know if he's part of this or not. I actually never asked. But this is huge because what is one of the biggest complaints you hear people make about Block.one? That they
don't say anything. I don't know how to reach you. I don't know what you're thinking. Why aren't you talking?
You don't engage with the community. Where are you? What's up with EOS Gov? Well, who was leading the EOS governance?
Yeah. Who was like the most communicative BP overall, consistently, reliably, as well as really professionally?
EOS New York. So, and they're great writers, great PR. You'll notice if you search EOS New York in your Google News feed, for some reason, a bunch of news outlets picked up this story. I don't think that's a coincidence because, yeah, I mean, it's a great team to have on board. They know what they're doing. Kevin has a PR background. I mean, some people like make jokes and call him the hall monitor of EOS, and it's good. Now he's the hall monitor.
To laugh at yourself. That's all good.
Now he's
now he's the hall monitor of Block.one.
And it's great. I couldn't be happier for Kevin and his team. I couldn't be happier for Block.one. And when EOS Gov, I guess is my question. I hope it's coming soon. So Block.one still hasn't voted, but I think this is a step in the right direction.
Agreed. I think this really showcases as well that Block.one is putting in resources. They've listened to the community. They're setting up that team, whatever it's going to may be, whatever that may be, or however that may play out. You've got these people that have been in the EOS community now for 2 years. They've been a block producer. They've seen all of it at different levels, and then now going to be working at the Block.one space with the primary focus of engaging with the community. And so this is great. This is really
some of the other complaints about Block.one is that they always have their blinders on and they don't see and hear things. Well, anyone that's been in EOSIO Telegram for the last 2 years knows that besides Yves and me and like Rob, how he used to be, like Kevin is one of the most active people on Telegram you'll ever find. He's like everywhere. Saeed too. I call it Saeed. He's everywhere too. There's a few people that I don't know whenever anyone sleeps.
They don't sleep. That's not a thing.
Let's skip some things because we talked about EOS. Oh, it actually is the next topic. Diffuse. Diffuse open. So let me just read the quote real quick because whatever. You get a Block.one quote on your article, EOS New York. It's a Block.one blog post. But the Diffuse blog post also got a Dan Larimer quote. So that's what I'll call out here in a second. Let me share the screen, but why don't you let everyone know what Diffuse is, because you'll explain it much better than I.
So Diffuse, how can I put it in layman's terms? It's a way to be able to interact with the blockchain data. It's a very easy way for you to be able to either fetch data or filter through data on the blockchain, on the EOS blockchain. I think they also operate on Ethereum as well. And the general idea is there's a lot of data on EOS. And so Diffuse is now open sourcing, or has open sourced their protocol or their tech stack, so that more people will be able to actually run Diffuse and be able to open up this amazing product. We've been using Diffuse for most, if not all, of the products that we've built over the years. And I'm also happy to say that we actually got our hands on Diffuse a little over 24 hours ago, and we've been running Diffuse as well. This is an amazing product, super bullish for the long term of this. It's basically an alternative. It's a complementary tool to the history solutions that we already have out there. So V2 history, kind of the idea of going towards Hyperion, Diffuse is just another complementary to that. It just opens up EOS to crazy levels. Amazing news.
in the article, I will read one of the quotes. It comes from Dan Larimer, which is amazing that they did a collaborative PR. Like when have you ever seen Block.one collaborate with anyone in the community? And now in 1 week or 2 weeks, we got Diffuse open sourcing and having Block.one. So Dan said, Block.one welcomes the significant technical contribution from Diffuse, and we plan to closely integrate it with EOSIO and other products. Said Dan, we are also proud that Diffuse emerged from the EOSIO ecosystem and that they share our vision to accelerate the global adoption of blockchains. That's huge. It might just be a quote, but it's something that is unprecedented. I mean, maybe I'm just getting excited over something small, but I think there's more to come. I don't have it in my notes, but Block.one in their developer portal, they just put out a new landing page for all of the community tools, which LiquidApps was featured on twice for the Zeus SDK and for just the DAPP network. Diffuse is on there, obviously. Hyperion. I don't have it in front of me, so I can't tell you what else is on there. I was had my blinders on looking at my own stuff. But this is huge. I also want to plug that I recorded an interview with Alec Bourget. I hope I didn't mess that up. I still can't
Alexandre
say it.
Bourget.
Bourget.
Alexandre Bourget, yeah.
I've got an interview with him. We talk all about Diffuse, how it came to fruition and what to expect from here. I said it on the interview, which you'll see Sunday. I think Sunday around lunchtime, noon Eastern is when I'm planning to publish it. But I really, really hope that this turns into a voice search, because I know you don't have voice, Yves, but I do since I'm American.
It's terrible.
But it sucks that we can't search on voice, man. It's like such a basic functionality. I hope an integration with Diffuse.
People don't understand how difficult it is to search through all the data that's on the blockchain. Because the blockchain keeps adding blocks, right? It keeps adding data ongoing live in a decentralized fashion. So what Diffuse is capable of doing in an extremely performant way is actually really, really, really difficult to pull off.
And that's something you'll hear in the interview. Is Alex made a really good point. So if you've been following Dan Larimer since I think maybe the Bloxburg Summit was when he first brought it up, whenever he started going after traditional databases, he's saying, like, everyone says, like, why do it on a blockchain? Why not just use a database? And the key value proposition he's making is that even if a database is that fast, you can't write to a database without at the same speeds that he's able to with EOSIO in his tests. But that's writing to a database. Block.one's focus is writing to blockchain. And Alex is going to explain this so much better than I am. I'm chopping this up, but basically Diffuse's specialty is reading the blockchain. So Block.one's been focusing on making EOSIO write to a blockchain super, super fast. And Diffuse is focused on reading it and interpreting that data. So I'm not going to, Mark Woods is in here. What's up, Mark Woods, VP of product at Block.one in the chat, in the house. Anyway, what was I going to say? I got thrown off here. Digital Maniac, what's up, man? What's next? Where are we at?
Actually, somebody's asking a question here in the chat, and we can skip the topic and then we'll come back. We'll actually just flip them around if you don't mind, because somebody asked, what's up with, let me go back. Who's Aiden Pierce, and did he help or hurt EOSIO? Is he a friend or a foe? And I think that jumps well into, if you want to pull up Blocktivity on stream. Because this has been a debated topic, especially last year, November, December. So for those of you who don't know, Eidos, it's a mining contract essentially where you mine CPU unused resources. So that if you had a certain amount of CPU allocated to you because you have a certain amount of EOS and you want to monetize that free CPU because you're not that CPU because you're not using it, Eidos, I'm putting it really high level, but Eidos permitted you to do that. But what that does is it really stress tests the blockchain. It really stress tests EOS. And if we look at Blocktivity here, we look at a record the other day, last week, at 150 million, a little over 150 million transactions in a 24-hour period. Now, to put that into context, if we go down to Ethereum, or let's go down to Bitcoin, their record is 1.1 million in one day. Or no, it's less than that. No, it should be less than that. Where's Bitcoin in there? My screen is tiny. 1.1, yeah, 1.1 million. But on average, they run roughly 400,000 transactions per day. 400,000 transactions per day amounts to about 150 million transactions per year. So EOS is now capable and I'll get into that in a little bit, but EOS is now capable of processing the same amount of transactions in a 24-hour period that Bitcoin processes in a full year. And we're also pretty much there where we're able to process the same amount of transactions that Ethereum processes in a full year. We're able to do that in a 24-hour period.
Damn.
Now, without contracts like Eidos, we're not able to test that live. There's only so much we can do on a testnet. We can't replicate how users will behave, the economics of it, the incentives of it, the human behavior. That cannot be modeled in a testnet as effectively as in the wild. And Eidos really gave us that opportunity. There are costs to this, though. So for us to be able to process 150 million transactions in a day, that means that, for example, a great example, EOS Canada's Diffuse, they need to store that information somewhere. And everybody who's providing history solutions needs to store that data. That is, we were calculating and we were processing roughly, or we were adding to history, a little over 4 gigabytes of data per day. And with 150 million transactions, we'd be adding roughly 6 gigabytes of data per day. There's a massive cost to the blockchain to be able to do this, right? And so we've turned the power down. So what you've seen is that the record was 115. We could have easily gotten it to 150. And how we're doing that, I don't know if you have the Aloha maybe, is we've all implemented EOS 2.0. We're activating virtual machine, EOS VM. And so we're essentially able to process more transactions because each transaction has a smaller CPU cost. And so we've showcased that EOS is just insanely strong, insanely, insanely rapid, and just ridiculous amounts of data can be processed. And so we've turned that down now because EOS is just too strong. So that we're letting the history nodes and everybody else kind of catch up and figure out how we're going to now be able to store that data in an effective way. And again, once we have it stored, now we need to be able to go read it. So Diffuse as well has had to make some many tweaks over the last couple of months to be able to access and accommodate that level of information. So going back to the question, Eidos, good or bad? From my point of view, really good, because it's without that, I'm not able to showcase in a live environment that EOS is insanely powerful. And we got into this with the premise that EOS should be able to process pretty much all the transactions that it can be thrown at. That was the whole point, right?
I will add to that without Eidos, we would have never seen the vulnerability in Rex. Rex is completely getting deprecated within the next year, 6 months, however long I don't know the exact timeline, but it's being deprecated for a different, potentially better model. I hope it's better. And we wouldn't have known that if it wasn't for Eidos. We wouldn't have known that the 80% cap was an issue. The other thing is we saw so much innovation. We found Block.io started offering 5 free transactions for every account.
Most of the wallets started doing that. Most of the applications started managing that in their operations.
On Token Pocket, I could spend $1.50 and get like a set number, like 100 transactions. So I was talking earlier about how I was renewing my Rex rental every month, but on other accounts, it was easier to just spend $1.50 on Token Pocket. I get 100 transactions and I don't have a time limit on those. I just have transactions and I don't run out of them.
Yeah.
So like all of this innovation sprouted out of Eidos, and now Eidos is not an issue. I don't know the exact price right now, but the other day it was 1 EOS on Rex could rent you over 4,000 EOS worth of CPU. So Eidos is not a thing. Like it's not really bottlenecking
because it makes
anymore.
No more sense anymore. Yeah, so you can rent with 1 EOS, you can rent 4,200 EOS now for the month. The incentives for Eidos mining are just not there anymore. But the gains that we made out of it are now there forever. And so it really forced the network to upgrade itself, to really adjust, adapt. And if the premise is we wanted to be the best performing blockchain, Eidos helped achieving us that goal one step level, like one level up or 2 levels up.
And if you ever see any app like complaining about how it's too expensive on the mainnet, that's bullshit, because it's complete bullshit. Saeed said that I think EOS Gov was where I saw it in Telegram. He said in 1 month, and there's thousands of users on Blocks.io, and he gives them 5 free transactions every single day. He spent $20 for all of those. I can
tell you that our mining pool, we process, I think I'm probably wrong with the number, but it's something like 30,000 transactions per day. We pay for the CPU for the users, and it costs us peanuts at the end of the month. There's no reason why you cannot rent the CPU that you need in order to pay transactions for your users. This is an operational cost that you should be able to put in your business plan.
And then let me just squash any argument. So people that say that it's still too expensive, that means they haven't been looking over the last, like, what, 2 months since it's gone down significantly. So they're either not looking or they're just naive. And the other thing is that all of these new tools that sprouted out of Eidos are available now. So even if you think that you're afraid Rex is going to lock up again, which I see very little chance of that, now we have the Shintai automated resource management. So if you're a DAPP, use that instead. Then you have,
or you have all the portals and all the wallets that have now adapted and they offer free transactions, or all the other applications that actually survived it and now they offer free transactions, and it's just part of it. And they've essentially abstracted resources out of the user's hands, which was always the intent. Power users and large token holders might want to know how that works, but the average user shouldn't even need to worry. They shouldn't even know that that exists. They just want to use the application.
Someone, what is this? Michael Musicians League says, "Hey guys, are there any rumors about EOS stablecoins?" I just want you to talk about that arbitrage stablecoin thing that you guys have. There
are rumors. There are rumors. Yes.
I might have started them. I don't know.
I can maybe start a rumor. I don't know. Should I start a rumor, Zach?
Yeah, maybe. Start the rumor.
So maybe.
Shout out to Michael. By the way, the person that asked this question, shout out to Michael. I met him last year at Consensus, and
so we do have two very strong stable tokens right now. We've got EOSDT, which is, I believe, the most used one, and it has quite a bit of liquidity. And then we have USDT EOS, which has, I believe, around $6 million worth of liquidity, but there's still very little use cases right now. I think their largest user is actually Token Pocket. I think they have 2 million or so of that liquidity, and they use it within their platform. WhaleX is also a big user of that. Now that we have a new block producer in town, which perhaps is named Binance, perhaps there might be some other stable tokens coming to EOS. And if those stable tokens were coming to EOS, why would that be good, Zach? Well, it might be good because now you have more arbitrage opportunities between different platforms, which means anybody doing DeFi now has more opportunities to do that DeFi. But that might just be a rumor. I don't know. Maybe some people are already working on that. Maybe, just maybe.
That'd be fantastic. Then it wouldn't matter like what stablecoin you have. You could just swap between them. It doesn't matter.
And maybe if you went to xNation.io and you looked at the third tab and you saw that there was a stable token exchange.
I pulled it up a few times. I was trying to trigger this conversation earlier. So I think someone wants to, so it says US government going to release digital dollars. I see this in the news. Everyone saw this in the news, and blockchain went crazy. They never said, I hope they're using blockchain, but they never actually said that. Like, I just want to.
It's a nice title because it's a nice title, but yeah, is there any substance to it right now? I don't know.
Maybe Block.one knows. I don't know.
I think the most substance right now is unlimited QE. Hey, let's just unlimited. Let's print money. No strings attached. No walls. No barriers. No nothing. Like nothing. Just unlimited. Unlimited QE. First time in history.
Let's
just showcase that the whole banking system is just a fraud. Like, basically it doesn't
and
matter.
people are catching on. So we're always like the crazy people. We talk to people outside of crypto and they think we're nuts whenever we're talking about this stuff. But I kid you not, I have had more people ask me about Bitcoin in the last week or two than I ever have since like 2017, 2018. I have not had so many people ask me about this Bitcoin thing.
Well, and some people now are starting to make the link like, wait a minute, if they could just print unlimited money and it didn't matter, then why were we paying taxes? Or like, doesn't that mean that then, there's no real value to money? Like, if they can just print it, isn't it worth something? Can you just print it out of thin air? Yeah, you can. They've been doing that since 1971. So yes.
I've made this argument also because obviously it's the crypto thing to do is talk shit on all this inflation. But the reason you got to pay taxes because it adds buy side liquidity to the US dollar. Imagine US dollar is another shit coin. You got to have buy side liquidity, and the buy side liquidity is to pay your taxes with.
There's more to it than that, but sure, there's a function of, but no, I think people are starting to see
they are
that when the governments are able to basically just like, let's just print money because it really doesn't matter. We're just going to give you more money. And as long as people have the money, then it doesn't really matter within a closed system. So this is where though it's bigger than just this. So if you understand the economics, if I'm a country and I'm the only one printing money, unlimited money, then the other countries who I'm importing or exporting against, then they devalue my currency. However, if the whole world decides to print money, then the system stays the same.
Yep. I forget.
Right?
Who is his name? Raul Paul?
Yes, I know. Raul.
He's like
Raul. Yeah.
He's like a finance guy. So first of all, I should have known about him before, but I saw it like he was talking to Bloomer a couple weeks ago, and I think they said that they recorded an interview, which still hasn't been published. So I'm looking forward to that. But he posted like one of the best moves you can make right now is go long on the US dollar against any other currency, because basically everyone's printing money right now, and the dollar is going to hold strong against all of them. So not financial advice.
The US, not financial advice. The US is printing more than everybody else. The US just approved $6 trillion worth of printing, which is the equivalent of the GDP of Japan, which is about 20% of the US GDP yearly. So it's pretty massive. This is insane stuff.
Let's do the math. So how many zeros are in 6 trillion here? 6, 1, 2, 3.
12 zeros, or is it 9? No, yeah, 12 zeros.
How many Block.one ICOs would that be?
I know somebody posted the other day that it would be enough to, I think it's like more than 48 times the whole market cap of crypto, or more than that.
It's a quarter of, it's more than a quarter of the annual GDP. I remember reading that of the US, but
yeah, it's about, I think your GDP in the US is about 20 trillion, like 19.2, 19.6 trillion. That's about a fifth, or no, sorry. Is it 19? Yeah, no, actually, yeah, it's about 30%, something like that.
Damn. Wow, man, we're not even on for an hour yet, and we have only one topic to go, and that's the voice news, and we've gone off the rails, man. I was rushing us earlier. I didn't have to. So if anyone wants to hear,
it was good, because then there's excitement in the air and everybody's happy.
So this is huge news. It's not new news for anyone who's been paying attention since B1 June, but
kind of, but no.
Let me pull it up here. Why don't you introduce it while I try to get this?
So Block.one announced, or I guess it's now more official, Block.one invests $150 million in Voice. And what that does is, we all know that Zalatimo is the one that's going to be leading Voice. He's the CEO of Voice, and essentially he gets $150 million in order to be able to lead this organization. This subset of Block.one, Voice, this flagship product right now. And so he gets $150 million, and it says it consists of $100 million in cash and $15 million in IP assets.
So stop here. What do you, so we know that the domain was $30 million. So that's $30 million of IP assets. What do you think what do you think the other 20 million could be? I honestly don't know. I have no good guess.
I'm not sure, and you're just asking me this now without me having thought about it. I really don't know, Zach. Maybe somebody in the chat has an idea, and they can post it up while we keep going on this particular topic. But what's bullish about this, or because we already knew of the 150 million, right? But what's really bullish about this is that, and it is the quote. Or I think one of the quotes maybe from Zalatimo, for those of you who have had the chance to read the article.
Did you want me on the Business Insider? Is that where the better quote is?
Yeah, I think the Business Insider is pretty good, but it's something about one big advantage Voice has right off the bat. While the plan is to raise outside funding eventually, it's not reliant on external venture capital funding with its aggressive growth timelines. And so we've talked about this in the past. Actually, Stéphane Bisson on our team wrote a really, really good quote, or a really good little snippet. I think it was maybe 2 months ago or so, and he shared it with we shared it in Hot Sauce. And the idea is that as a community, we gave a superpower to Block.one. During the 2017 ICO rush, they accumulated quite a bit of funds, right, from the token sale. And what this does, especially now that we've been in a bear market for a while, is they're able to keep their head down and really just work on developing the product. They don't have to go out and try to seek more funding. They don't have to go do a Series A, B, C, whatever. They don't need to try and shield their product. They're not trying to do anything other than they already have the operational funds to build the product. Now they just need to build the product. And essentially, Voice starts off with a similar kind of head start, where they don't need to go out and seek some funding. They can just build, they can just develop. And this is from somebody who did that at Forbes. He built a whole digital platform,
contributor network, like a writer, author, contributor network, and they're
Forbes. And it's very successful as well, right? Because Forbes is a brand name. Everybody knows Forbes, very recognizable name. But now so many authors go on Forbes as freelancers and write articles, and voice essentially is very similar. So he has the experience in doing this. So him leading this this project is super bullish, I think.
I think the other good thing about this PR announcement is that it puts this article, like I just had up on the screen, Business Insider, it puts it in front of like mainstream news outlets, because most people outside of our little crypto bubble here have never heard of Voice, never heard of Block.one, never heard of EOS. But then here you get this article. If they click and read it, they see that it's legit. The former chief digital officer of Forbes. So that automatically adds legitimacy to whatever's going on at Voice. If you know nothing else, you see, well, at least they got someone experienced at the helm. And then the other thing is, where in the article was I looking? I forget.
And for those who don't have the article that Zach is referring to, in the Everything EOS channel yesterday, I actually copy pasted the article because there was a paywall behind the Business Insider. It was a Business Insider Prime. I'm guessing that they were doing an A/B test or something like that, because I just clicked on the link and it worked. And so I just copied the actual text for you guys so that you can go and check that out.
So I also want to point out that another great thing about Voice is, and I said this whenever Sala was first announced, is Voice has its own CEO. And now this article and all the articles that came out about this, it makes it even more clear that Sala's in charge. So
yeah, this is his thing.
That means he's going to hire, like I pulled up the jobs on LinkedIn before, that they're hiring like their own executive team. So their own like professional marketing person. And keep in mind that Voice's headquarters is in New York City, which you're going to get top world-class talent there. So I think the coronavirus is actually slowing down like his probably team build right now, because nobody, even though they have the money, I doubt there's people, I don't know, I guess you could do Zoom interviews. But I'm just assuming a lot of companies are on a hiring freeze right now. I don't know if Block.one is in that same boat, maybe not, but they're going to have a powerhouse team there.
Apparently not.
Yeah, apparently not. They're probably still hiring people. I mean, they just hired, I think the decision for—
They just hired the EOS New York team, literally like 2 days ago.
But I think that was like it's like they just made that decision. I don't think.
No, of course not. But still, I don't think that they're immune to what's going on in the economy right now. But I think they're well positioned.
Very well positioned.
Right. So they're not immune. They're just like anybody else. They're, seeing some assets obviously go down in valuation. However, from what we know of their assets, large part of it was in Bitcoin. Obviously, large part of it is in EOS. So those have gone down in valuation. But large part of it was in US Treasuries. And I would assume, in a way, backed by US dollars. And the US dollar has been somewhat very bullish lately. It's actually gone up. So compared to me, my Canadian dollar, the US dollar went up, I think 15% or something like that. And so well-balanced portfolio, going back to, doing your proper finances. I think Block.one superpower that we gave them, they're able to continue operating even during these times. And that's really good for us.
I want to pull something else up. So
what are you pulling up?
Well, first of all, EOS New York's in New York City. So I don't, they said that they're hired for Block.one. They probably had nothing to do with Voice. That's just wild speculation. But the one thing I wanted to point out was, since I was thinking of EOS New York, was I pulled up this old tweet from Brendan back in January. And I shared this in the Everything EOS Telegram channel, but I'm going to read the tweet for people listening on iTunes. This is Brendan Bloomer on January 20th. He says, "Dedicated foundations that aid in the marketing and governance of a public network can be a powerful and unifying force for decentralized iteration, especially when held accountable by free market competition and token holder election, as opposed to being hardwired." Do you think EOS New York is going to be part of this? Because they were doing the foundation stuff while they're still block producers. Do you think Block.one's going to roll out the foundation, or do you think that needs to be something from the community still?
The foundation that EOS New York was involved in was a different foundation, I believe, than what Brendan is referring to right there.
I think the name speaking generic. He was speaking generically, I think, in the tweet. Yes. So I don't want to. So
if there were to be a foundation, I don't think it's the foundation that EOS New York was a part of last year, which seems to have. We haven't really gotten any updates on that. So I don't think so.
Okay.
Whether or not Block.one is setting up anything for EOS New York, I would imagine so. I would imagine that they're going to facilitate and enable EOS New York. I shouldn't call them EOS New York anymore, but you know who I'm referring to, right?
Dude,
so
we're gonna call
Rick and the team.
Yeah, we're gonna call them EOS New York for
their internal EOS New York. So the guys, I just call them the guys. So they're enabling the guys, I think, to be able to do better outreach to the community. So however that happens, whatever legal structure that is, whatever name you want to give that, yeah, I think that that's something that they would perhaps have on their plate. But it's all speculation.
So let's just talk about like some of the changes with Block.one, like everything we talked about today. So we got bringing on EOS New York. I mean, Kevin and Rick and their team. So I think at the end of January, they brought on Ash Oro, who's very connected in the community, very great mind. I know you know him very well also.
Yeah. Before I was on this show, I was on his show.
That's true.
What a coincidence.
What else? So they brought on Mark Woods, who we mentioned earlier, and he's now the VP of product. He is very in tune with the community, been super involved. I actually met him at the EOS Hackathon in San Fran, and he's a community guy who's part of that team. What else have they done? The Diffuse. So just collaborating with Diffuse for a press release and giving some quotes. Like this is all stuff that like never happened before. And in the last couple of months, we've just seen this acceleration of collaboration. Also the community.
So what happened a couple of months before then? What changed?
We were all complaining about being disappointed about B1 June.
They paid a fine and they settled that part that was lingering beforehand. And so now they can actually move forward.
Yeah. I mean, this is great. This is too bad.
Because when your hands are tied and you're in discussions with the SEC, are you going to start reaching out to the community and creating new initiatives and doing all these things which we've seen they're capable of doing? No, you're just jeopardizing your operations even more. You settle the things first and then you move along. And then during that settlement, there's probably also kind of figuring out what they can do, what they can't do, and setting themselves up legally in order to be able to do those things.
What have we missed?
I think you said it earlier, like we're turning a corner or we're heading in the right direction. Yeah, I think so. I think we're actually heading in a very, very positive direction. And I believe that the people that have hung on essentially over the last 2 years that are still here, still watching the show, hit those like buttons and subscribe. So those people I think will be heavily rewarded. It's not investment advice, but the idea is that there's a community that's clearly stuck here throughout those and I can say the word difficult times. And they're now well positioned to be able to, take advantage of what is about to come next.
Hope so. Angel Digital Maniac just pointed out in the chat that Voice had a Zoom meeting. So this guy, Adam, he's on Voice. He's really active. Anyone else on there? He hosts these like weekly or bi-weekly like Zoom calls, which I'm shaming myself for not have been on any yet, but they just said that Sala was on there, which sounds pretty cool. I wish they had a recording of that. I don't know. I just wanted to point that out. I was actually sidetracked here. I wanted to pull this up before we end the show. This is the community developer tools thing I was talking about. So this is the EOSIO developer portal, which is always getting better. I mean, there's always stuff happening with the documentation, but they created this page and Serge Medellin tweeted it out the other day. But they're actually like pointing out a bunch of the community tools. And I'm sure that this is just the start of what we're going to see. So you see here, we got like Zeus SDK, we got DAPP Network, Diffuse, Hyperion History, API, Kylan Jungle, all the people that are simple assets, D-goods. So basically, even though this is something small to get like this little mention in the official documents, it's actually a really big deal to a lot of these teams. Like every one of these.
It's a huge deal. It's a huge deal. It's validation of the work that you've been doing for such a long time, recognized by the company that created this software.
Sometimes
at the highest level, like on an official website, an official portal, it's a huge deal.
Sometimes all you need is a pat on the back and someone to let you know that they're paying attention and let you know, good job. And I think that's what we're seeing more of. I mean, keep going back to EOS New York, Kevin, because he's always going to be EOS New York, Kevin. He's like ingrained in the community. So
he's actually changed his handle, by the way. Now he's at Kevin EOS.
Kevin EOS or EOSIO. Kevin EOS.
No, I think it's just Kevin
EOS. I know it's just Kevin EOS. Yeah, so I saw that because his name was EOS New York. I wonder what they're going to do with their Twitter account. They should give it to someone.
I think everything is currently like even their Telegram channel has gone to read only. I think it's now just a group or whatever, no posting. So I think during this transition, this is what Kevin said publicly, during this transition, they unregged the block producer, they've closed down the Telegram group, etc. So there's going to be a transition period.
And I just want to point out, so there was like some miscommunication. I think the article was updated, but when it first came out, there were people confused thinking that when Block.one like hired this team, that they somehow like bought whatever EOS tokens they had left. And that's completely not true. Kevin's in the Everything EOS Telegram channel, Kevin
they did change that apparently. But like, think about it. So the article even said that maybe Block.one was going to use those tokens to vote. EOS New York at the end was making, let's say, something like 105 EOS per day.
Yeah.
Give me a break, okay? Come on. That's just failed reporting. That's just really failed sensationalism reporting. But they did correct. Apparently, Kevin did reach out, and apparently they did make those changes.
Yeah. So I just wanted to clear up that misconception, because that was just a stupid rumor, and it doesn't really make sense. And I'm telling you, it's false. So
I'm telling you, it's false.
Chuck McDonald wants to know if we talked about the Hive fork or Steam. I followed it a little bit.
We did not talk about the Hive fork or Steam yet.
Yeah, I don't know if today's a good day to talk about that. I'm grossly
maybe
unprepared.
We can keep that for another time, because they just did it. There's still a lot of the token holders are still powering down, and so it takes 13 weeks to be able to do so. And so we're still going to be able, we're still going to see kind of a shift of tokens shifting from the previous blockchain to the new blockchain, essentially the fork. But what his question is, first example of a DPoS community defending itself against from a hostile takeover. And I think, did he ask about whether or not this could happen to EOS? I know somebody asked about whether or not this could happen to EOS. No, it's a completely different sense. So some people were asking, what if, let's say, Block.one were to sell their tokens? Yeah, okay, so they sell their tokens. There's no social contract on those tokens. There's nothing. It would just be another token holder that would come in. And Block.one, even if it wanted to right now, does not really affect that much, which is probably why they haven't voted until now. They wanted to wait until those tokens that they held were in a position to, should they were to be used, that it won't really affect the rankings. It can affect rankings, but it won't control the mainnet. So we're in a completely different position.
Block.one will never like sell their tokens in any traditional sense. I see a couple of different ways they could use them. They could, one, stake them on behalf of like third-party apps or their own apps that they partner with. Maybe give them like a deal saying, we'll give you free resources on the mainnet if you build on the mainnet. I could see that happening. I could see if they were to sell their tokens, this is all just speculation. This probably isn't going to happen. But
no,
I know. But I just wanted to point out a MakerDAO thing that happened, and we already funded MakerDAO last week. So
actually, to add to this, Block.one doesn't have access to those tokens for 10 years, right?
Well,
so every
they
year,
vest.
Yeah, so they're vested for 10 years. So yes, it could potentially happen in 10 years where they could sell their tokens. But just to add to that, even if they wanted to today, they can't.
Yeah, and they wouldn't, because they don't need the money. And actually,
if you go look at their asset worth, the 96 million tokens that they have less is worth less than 140,000 Bitcoin by a lot. That this is a small part of their portfolio. But as an asset, it's not 10%, 9.6 or 9.4% of all EOS. So it's huge in this ecosystem. But for their asset portfolio, it's actually relatively small.
The only reason I brought up selling tokens, I don't want to create FUD or speculation, but I'm looking for the article. But a while back, have you ever heard of A16 ounce or A16Z crypto? It's Andreessen Horowitz company. They basically bought $15 million of Maker from the Maker Foundation, and they got it at a steep discount that they could have never bought off of the market. And this is the only way. And Block.one doesn't need the money like MakerDAO needed the $15 million. But this is the only way. And this is, wow, I've been doing this a long time. This is back in September 2018. But this is the idea, was that MakerDAO actually sold Andreessen Horowitz some tokens. But it was like a strategic partnership. And I don't want to start speculation. This is just me wanting to bring up something I remembered. It has nothing to do with Block.one. But
and going back as well to like DPoS and the hostile takeover, one thing to note in Steam is that the exchanges were not participating in the voting. in EOS, the exchanges are already participating in the voting.
This is true.
We're already there. We're already in a time where the exchanges are participating. One big difference is the market cap of Steam versus EOS. They're financially incentivized to participate in EOS, which then has benefits as well. There's a lot of benefits there. Of course, there are downsides to that as well. There's nothing that's always one for one, but they didn't have that in Steam. And so the exchanges coming in, that was new. That was a new thing. Completely different. I'm not, I would say that it's a completely comparing apples to oranges. Not at all.
Do you think we're going to get, so keep talking about EOS New York and Block.one here. Coincidentally, back in the fall, they released their governance proposals within 24 hours of each other. Do you think that there's a possibility that they're going to merge some of the best ideas? Because there were certain things I liked about both of them. Like I love the bond aspect of Dan's, but I didn't like the fact that it was not a divisible vote, I think was the thing I didn't like about his. But EOS New York was one token, one divisible vote, I think.
So there were 3 pillars, if I recall, in New York's. One of them was a WPS, which is now up for voting. Maybe not their version of WPS, but a WPS. There was one token, one divisible vote, which if you actually do research is not a good idea at all. It removes all collaboration. It removes any semblance of people having to work together, which is extremely powerful and is one of the reasons why EOS is so strong. And if you think that it's going to shift the rankings, no, it will simply make the disparity even greater. And we have data. We have tons of other blockchains running on one token, one vote. It just means that each large token holder now just votes for themselves, doesn't need to talk to anybody else, and all the votes are rallied in one location. So that curve that we have, that some people say it's not good, well, it becomes worse. And then there's the governance aspect of that. There was a voter inflection point. So perhaps something like that could come about. And then Dan's proposal, I mean, there was a couple of things in Dan's proposals, but yeah, the pools. I am personally very, I'm looking forward to the pools. I would like to see the pools come about. I think it would be really good. I think they bring, they align incentives, they bring more incentives. However, if the idea is that you think that the pools are going to change who has power in EOS or who is in rankings, it will not. It doesn't really work that way. And so I think that we're going to see maybe some merging of ideas. I think maybe we're going to see some proposals. I think they'll be more active. What that means, how quickly that's going to happen, I'm not expecting anything in the next couple of weeks. I think it's going to take time before they set up the organization or whatever they're going to be doing. They're going to start, conversing with the public and saying what their role is going to be and start getting some feedback. But again, I'm not so worried about how long it's going to take. I'm excited about the idea that that's where we're heading. We now have the direction of this is where we're going to go. More involvement at that level specifically for the mainnet.
All right, Yves. We've gone over an hour. I usually cut it off at an hour because the traffic just drops off whenever I look at the analytics. But today's just an exciting episode, man. Like the first hour was action packed. I mean, it just kind of started.
Boom, 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 boom.
And I can't wait to do this again. I just want to remind everyone, I have another video coming out on Sunday. It'll be with Diffuse, with Alex from Diffuse. So check that out. I'm sure Yves will be back next week. I don't know what day yet. We got to get up. We'll eventually get on a consistent schedule. But man,
try to get it consistent. Yeah.
This coronavirus really changed things, man. But in a good and bad way.
I wouldn't say that it's changing things in a good way.
It is, man. I get to hang out with my wife all day. It's awesome.
I was doing that before. I work from home. Look, I work from home.
All right, so we close out the show in a very specific way. I know you know how to do it.
I do know how to do it.
Until next time, I'm Zack Gall.
I'm Yves La Rose. And this is everything EOS. Go EOS!
Smash the thumbs up, hit the like. That's the same thing. Leave a comment, whatever. I'll see you guys next week.
Peace out, guys.